This is Central Europe in the year 1796. Heavily inspired by Epic History TV, this map provides historical names and positions as it would at that time. This is ultimately a turn-based system, so it requires a set time of actions to be fully resolved, like moving armies, etc. In this video, we have 5 sections: maps, troops, battles, turns, and at the end, we will have an example on how the entire campaign will look like in a scenario. Now, before we start explaining movement, I want to turn your attention to how maps will look like and give you a little explanation on them. First, maps. There are currently a lot of maps that are available in the Discord server. To access these maps, go to the Discord, scroll down to NC Worldwide Important, and finally go to the channel World Maps. Now you will see a lot of selections, and you may also notice that there are 2 types of maps for each region. One is for roads, and the other is for army/naval placement. This is so when studying a map you can see roads easier, as in maps with flags may be blocking roads, causing confusion. You will also notice the majority of maps are called campaigns. This is a map specifically tailored to a large region, like Spain, Northern Italy, France. In these campaign maps, you will also notice that there are more roads and rivers. Furthermore, there's also more flags. So to explain flags first, this is the general flag. This is the flag that represents an entire army of divisions. To tell which divisions belong to which army, simply look at the color. In this case, we are looking at a Spanish general commanding forces in Lower Spain. By looking on the top left corner, we can see a letter in the color green. Therefore, any division in the color green belongs to this specific general. Therefore, if we were able to pay attention to other generals, we will also be able to easily categorize their entire force. Here, José's army of central Spain is positioned in a guarded defense against Portugal, while Antonio is guarding the Pyrenees. Great, now that we know how to distinguish armies, let's check out the size of them. In this system, there are 4 types of army compositions: garrison, small, regular, and huge. Now, if you want to check how many soldiers are in these types of compositions, go to the Discord, navigate to army strengths, and look and compare your armies. In this campaign, this is how they are recognized. Garrison armies have no silhouettes. Advanced guard divisions have a soldier silhouette with a plus in the center. A main body division has a simple soldier silhouette, while the cavalry has a horse. Now, to tell which army is which, it's pretty easy. First, go to the general which you wish to figure out its strength. Now, check to the top left corner of the general flag. If it resembles an S, it is a small army. If it resembles an R, it's a regular army, and if it resembles an H, it's huge. Remember, division strength varies depending on the size of the army it's within. For example, an advanced guard within a huge army equals up to 8,000 soldiers within the division, while a small army equals 4,000 within that division. Great, now that we have a little understanding on maps and army composition, let's go check on how turns will look like during a fully fledged campaign. Nations that are in relative peace are currently not at war. So in this system, nations that are not at war will only move through the huge European campaign map and not through the campaign ones. Why? Well, campaign maps are only used for strategy and competition, something that nations during peace do not need to worry about. Okay, before we get onto wartime turns, we did not explain size and strength. So if you want a little understanding before I jump into this section, go to this timestamp here, then come back. Wartime turns. Now this is a more important type of turn-based system that requires a game master to supervise the campaign and both nation leaders. Or if the nation leader cannot come, if approved, someone else will take the role of the nation leader. Once war is declared, both nation leaders and game master must be able to communicate, usually in a voice call or through chats. Now, how to actually begin moving armies, the game master will first initiate the game, and then the first turn will begin. Now, in an example of it being the first turn, both nations must go to the channel, campaign movement, and use the format there. They must go into depth on what they are doing and what they're trying to accomplish. So, in this campaign example, it's going to be Britain versus Spain. British forces are commanded under Sir Arthur Wellesley and are in the lower parts of Spain. Currently, there's 2 British armies in Spain, one under Wellington and the other as the garrison/reserve in Gibraltar. In this case, the British want to urgently recapture the city of Cadiz. So in this case, this is what he does. In the channel, he structures his format like this. Which army? Wellington. Now it will say which divisions. For this, you will leave it as shows under for the moment. In this example, you're going to have to take a screenshot. You're going to have to circle the 2 divisions or more that you're trying to move and use the pen tool to show where you're trying to move them. Movement 2. This is where you will begin to explain your movement in depth. In this example, without context, you don't know which division is going first. So you have to make sure you are specific in what you want the outcome to be. In this example, the player states this. The cavalry division will regroup with the advanced guard at Sevilla. Then both will attack Cadiz. Next, what type of march? In this, you will specify which march you want. There are currently 2 types of marches, normal and force. Now, force march successfulness will be decided by a number generator, 1 through 10. If the roll is 7 or greater, the force march will be a success. But if it is a 1 through 6, it will be a penalty for the division trying to move. And now the march for that division will be lower than a normal. For Napoleon's divisions, however, he can force march at a ratio of 50-50. For this, the number generator will be the same as 1 through 10, but now the roll will be 5 or greater, and that will mean a successful force march. To board armies onto a ship, first make sure the army is already at the port. Then get the ship to pick them up. If the ship enters the port within 1 turn, the troops can also board that ship within that turn too. The only thing is that you will have to wait another turn before the ship can start to move. So in the first turn, when the ship gets into the port, the troops are successfully boarded onto the ship. But then in turn 2, they can start to move their fleet. How to specifically understand armies, let's take a trip back into the Discord. Alright, first go to World Armies. Here you will see nations with different types of armies. There will be garrisons, small armies, regular armies, and huge armies. This is helpful if you are a nation leader, because then you can go look for your specific nation and check the types of armies you have. Nice! Now that you know what armies you have in your nation, now you might be wondering, alright, so now I know what armies I have in my nation. Now, how do I check the strength? To check the strength of your armies, go to the Army Strength channel. In this channel, you will see information for each army. For example, we will look at a small army. This small army has a total of 25,000 soldiers. These soldiers are spread out between 5 flags. Now, let's go look at how this would look like in an actual campaign. Going back to the Spanish Peninsula, the Army of Lower Spain, this army is an example of a small army. We know it's a small army because on the top left corner of the general's flag, it resembles an S. We also know which divisions are a part of this army because they are the same color as well. Now that you know your flags, let's explain these silhouettes further. In the small army of Lower Spain, we have 2 advanced guard divisions that equal up 4k each. Then we have the main body, which is comprised of 2 divisions that share 7k each. Finally, we have a single cavalry division that is up to 3,000 soldiers each. All together, all divisions equal up to 25,000 soldiers. Alright, now that we know a little bit more about army composition and strength, how does this all come back to Napoleon Total War? What does strength really mean in this context? Strength does not mean points as someone might think, but currency. Before we go more into depth what I mean by currency, I will first need to explain that your nation already has a pre-selected army for you to play. To check what army your nation must always play, go to the Discord and the channel that says pre-selected armies. Here, you will see the army you must play as always. You will not be able to change your army. That will be the army that you will be playing throughout the entire European era for the moment. Alright, now, the currency thing I was talking about earlier, this is how it will work. Now, let's put a little scenario up. Imagine in a campaign map. Now, we are in the Spanish Peninsula, and it is the Spanish army, that is the small Spanish army in Lower Spain, versus Wellington's army, which is a regular army. Effectively, their divisions are spread out. Now, the Wellington army decides to attack an enemy infantry division belonging to a Spanish general. But since this is a regular advanced guard division versus a smaller regular advanced division, it is completely different. Wellington's advanced guard division has a strength of 8,000 soldiers, while the Spanish smaller advanced guard division has a total of 7,000 soldiers. The way that this would play out is that both nations must first select their pre-selected armies, and then, depending on how much troops you have in that division, will equal up to how much you will spend to build your army. So, in this case, Britain will play the pre-selected army of the Theaters of War 1811 9K Portugal army, and they will spend 8,000. Now, a little rule on army composition: you cannot bring any foreign help. So, in the British army, you cannot bring any Portuguese troops. Alright, now yes, you can do multiple players even though it's one flag versus another flag. You can do that definitely. The only thing is you will have to distribute that 8,000 amongst each player. So for the British example, which is, 8,000, each player would respectively have 2,000 to spend on their army. Now, finally, you will need to know how to calculate deaths. You can use this formula for whatever battle and whatever situation, and it will always be the most realistic and fair amount of soldiers you will lose. Okay, so this formula is your team losses divided by how many divisions were present. This goes for friendly and foe flags. Then you multiply this by how many flags the enemy had. When you multiply it all together, you shall get your casualty count. Then you will get the original strength of your division, subtracted by the casualty count, and that will be your new strength. Strengths will be documented in a Google Docs for everyone to see. So you can study armies, enemy armies, friendly armies, and you'll know what you will be going up against. Alright, now that we know all the rules, let's put it all together in an example or a scenario. So this, in an actual campaign, is how rules will be applied. Britain declares war on Spain and prepares to by picking up the army of Wellington located at Portsmouth, and Britain plans to relocate them to Spain. From this distance, the entire trip will take 5 whole turns. Furthermore, Britain also orders the army in Ireland to reinforce. They will arrive within 8 turns. Now, within this turn, Britain has already declared war on Spain, so Spain as well notices. Spain will decide to attack first against the garrison at Gibraltar. His forces will get there within 2 turns. Turn 3, Battle of Gibraltar, a British victory. The British have defended Gibraltar with minimal losses. Now, we will take both casualties from both sides, put them in the formula as it shows here, and subtract them from their divisions. From there, all the information will be written down in a Google Doc and will be recorded so that both nations can see the casualty count. Furthermore, one more rule before I continue on with this scenario. Once a division is injured, the only way for it to regain its strength is for it not to be in combat, plus it has to be nearby the capital city. Within turns 3 and 4, the Spanish continue to try to take the city, but each attempt doesn't make a breakthrough. Turn 5. Britain land forces have arrived in force. Once landed, troops will need to await another turn before they can start to move. The Spanish army reacts to this by retreating to a new defensive line. Turn 6. Wellington sends divisions to siege the town of Cadiz, and during this turn, the Spanish tears up the plans to retreat and orders an immediate reinforcement force to go to Cadiz. Turn 7. These divisions fight the Battle of Outer Cadiz. The battle is a slug match, but in the end, British discipline prevails. The reinforcing army retreats in disarray. The British will continue the siege. After then, casualties are also yet again subtracted equally throughout the divisions and recorded in the Google Doc. Turn 8. The British battle again for Cadiz. This time, the outnumbered garrison gets destroyed. Oh yes, in this system, divisions that get destroyed will reappear the next day within the capital city. If the capital city is already occupied by the enemy, they cannot spawn in. Now, for more dangerous news for the Spanish, the army of Ireland has arrived in force. Turn 9. Now that Cadiz is lost, the Spanish army retreats further into central Spain to be supported by José's army. Turn 10. After reorganizing, Britain leaves an advance guard division from the Army of Ireland to station the fort of Cadiz, while both generals will advance with their entire force into central Spain. Now, this is how typically a battle will look like. Furthermore, another rule, after turn 15, both armies will be asked to stop if they want. The reason being, this is the end of the first day of the campaign. Both sides can continue to play the campaign if they want, but after this, anyone who wants to stop will not be blamed for delaying. How to deal with diplomacy. In this game, you cannot just win over a nation and just annex all their lands. This is how the system will work. After winning one war against this nation, you declare peace, and you can also force a non-aggression pact. After winning a second war over this nation, you can cede land and do the previous ones. If you destroy the army and win against them for the third time, you can force alliance policies. Alright, great! Now this is the first update to the Napoleonic campaign server. Next time we'll add supplies, currency, and hopefully a lot more things to do. Because if we add a currency, it will allow for blockading to actually do something. So thank you for watching. We'll introduce more cool things. It will be peak, and yeah, go fight for your country.